Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is the live game review. Aston Villa 1, Everton 2 at Villa Park last night in the third round of the Carabao Cup. Everton progress into the next round of the Carabao Cup, and the biggest compliment I could give to Sean Dyche and to those players after this performance and this result is I distinctly remember sitting in this exact seat around about 2-3 weeks ago when the draw was made and we found out Everton would be taking on Aston Villa at Villa Park in the third round of the competition after Everton barely were able to scrape past Doncaster Rovers in the second round, a team who were rock bottom of League Two at the time. A team that we struggled to beat. We were absolutely terrible in the first half of that game, and thankfully we were able to come back in the second half and win it. And I remember that draw was made, and I remember sitting in this exact seat and pretty much thinking, right, well, that's our cut run over for this season, at least in the Carabao Cup. There's absolutely no way we turn up to Villa Park and we get anything from that game. We'd obviously just played Villa in the league and we'd lost that game quite convincingly at Villa Park. So, I remember sitting here and whilst I might have said on the video, oh, you never know, it could be a different game, deep down I was probably thinking, yeah, that's probably our Carabao Cup run over for this year. And even if you would have asked me, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, a week ago, even if you'd have asked me a week ago to this day, how do I feel going into that game against Aston Villa in the Carabao Cup, I'd have probably still said, I don't think Everton will get anything out of the game. I think we'll lose it. Hopefully it's not as bad as it was last time, and then we just move on and we move forward. And yet, we turned up last night and comfortably beat Aston Villa with no real problem, other than a shaky last sort of 10 to 15 minutes. And I know some people will say the last half an hour wasn't great after they made their substitutions, and there's no doubt about that when they brought on the likes of Ollie Watkins and Boubacar Kamara, and they brought on Luka Dean as well. Obviously it become a little bit more difficult because they had their first team out at that point. It was every first team player barring the goalkeeper, but other than that last 10-15 minutes or so, Everton were in control for the entirety of the 90 minutes, and we were up against a good, experienced Aston Villa team, an Aston Villa team with a lot of their first team players in and around it. Okay, they had a change in goal, and they had, as I said, a couple of players that were taking out, the likes of Ollie Watkins and Luka Dean, but for the most part, it was a strong Aston Villa side, it was a strong Everton side, and Everton were comfortable in the game for pretty much the entirety of it, as I said, other than that final 10 or 15 minutes, and that isn't a sentence that I thought I'd say a week ago today when I was thinking about this game of football, and it obviously comes off the back of a fantastic win against Brentford, on the weekend, last weekend, and to go and back that up with another big win away from home against the side that we haven't beaten since 2016. By the way, this Aston Villa team was something like 12 games unbeaten at home before yesterday evening. They'd not lost a single game at home for a long time in any competition. And yet we turned up yesterday and we're comfortable winners. Now, okay, you might say the last 10 minutes wasn't very comfortable, but generally, for the entire feel of the game, it was a comfortable win for Everton. Now, this is a team that 2 weeks ago didn't look like they could buy a win. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we've won 2 games on the bounce away from home. Just to put it in perspective, we won 2 games away from home all season last season. And I'm aware that the Aston Villa game yesterday wasn't in the Premier League. I get that. However, to have beaten 2 really good sides within the space of 5 days, both away from home, 2 sides, by the way, with incredible home records. Brentford have got an incredible home record and Aston Villa have got an incredible home record, and to turn up at both of those grounds and beat both of those teams in a relatively comfortable manner just shows you how different things can be in football and how quickly things can change in football. And listen, I'm not going to now sit here and pretend that I never ever criticised Sean Dyche and pretend that I always said from day one that Sean Dyche was the best manager for the job, etc., etc. I've given my fair criticism. I've given my fair criticism to Sean Dyche as everybody else, and I still stick by my point that the upcoming 2 Premier League home games are absolutely huge for him and huge for us as a football club. We absolutely must beat Luton at Goodison, and we absolutely must beat Bournemouth at Goodison as well. It's as simple as that. But the fact of the matter is the manager deserves an immense amount of credit for the last 2 results and the last 2 performances, because they have been polar opposite to anything that we've seen this season. Even in those games where, you know, we were maybe a little bit unlucky, you could argue, the game against Wolves, the game against Fulham, we weren't as good as we were yesterday. We weren't as good as we were against Brentford in those games. We were unlucky, and we maybe, you know, should have taken our chances and should have won on those days, but we still weren't as comfortable and weren't as in control and weren't as clinical as we have been over the last 2 games. And I said this yesterday in the instant match reaction, and I'll say it again. I don't believe that this upturn in form, because it is an upturn in form, because, you know, we couldn't buy a win this time last week, and all of a sudden we've won 2 games on the spin, 2 away games against 2 really good sides. I don't believe the upturn in form is a coincidence. I don't believe it's come about coincidentally because the players have turned up one day. Maybe, you know, I don't know, maybe they turned up on the Monday after Arsenal and said, yeah, do you know what, we're actually going to start playing footy now. We actually want to play footy. We actually want to win some games for this team. I just don't believe that it was as easy as, you know, all of a sudden everybody woke up one day and went, you know what, we're actually going to make this work. Now, I really do think the manager has sat down. I think the manager has taken certain steps to try and improve this, whether that be, you know, having conversations with individual players, whether it be changing things around. We obviously saw a change of system yesterday, change of formation, or whether it just be a general meeting to build confidence and try and build the players, you know, the players' belief in themselves up a little bit. I don't know what it is, but I credit Sean Dyche for the last 2 performances, because they've definitely been polar opposite to the one against Arsenal a week ago. Definitely 100%. Okay, you could argue the performances against Fulham and Wolves were also, you know, not the worst in the world, but that performance against Arsenal, comparing it to the performance last night or the performance against Brentford, is completely polar opposite, and I credit the manager for that, for being able to sit down with those players and ultimately clearly remind them of how important it is to go out on that pitch and give 110% every time you put that blue shirt on, and go out and fight for every tackle and fight for every ball and take your chances when they come to you. You know, I remember saying before the Brentford game, there's 2 things in football that you must have, and if you haven't got them, there's absolutely no point in even bothering turning up and having a go. If you've not got A, the belief in yourself, and B, a plan to win a game of football, then there's no point. If you're turning up to a game of football on the impression that we're not going to win today, so we haven't got a plan to win, then there's no point in turning up. Even if you are playing the best team in world football, the absolute best team ever to have played, you should still have a plan to win that game of football. Even if it's unlikely to happen, there still should be a plan in place as to how you are going to do that. And the other thing you need is belief in yourself. If you're a footballer and you're turning up on a Saturday afternoon and you don't believe that you can win the game of football you're about to play, then there's absolutely no point to you playing in it whatsoever. There is no point at all. You know, football is about believing in yourself. Even again, if you're coming up against the best team in the world, you should be believing that you're good enough to put up a performance against that team and you know, maybe get a slice of luck and then maybe win the game. If you're turning up thinking, oh my God, we're playing Arsenal today and, you know, we're probably going to get beat quite heavily, so what's the point in even preparing for it? Then what's the point in even turning up? We may as well have just phoned the Premier League and said, hey, listen, lads, we're not even going to bother here because we're going to get beat. And that is the difference for me. Obviously, there's tactical differences in terms of our press has been much better in the last 2 games than it was in the game against Arsenal. Our efforts, the midfield, have been much more controlling. The midfield, for me, is the key thing. I think it gets overlooked massively. I remember talking about it a couple of weeks ago and somebody said, oh, don't be silly, Cam. Midfields don't win football. Strikers win football, etc., etc. The reality is, midfields do win football because, yes, your centre-forward wins the game by scoring the winning goal, or your goalkeeper wins the game by making the winning save. But the reality is, if you want to control games of football like Everton have done over the last 2, You need to have a midfield unit, whether it be a midfield 3 of Doucouré, Garner, Gay and Onana, whether it be a midfield 2 of James Garner and Onana. You need to have a core midfield that are able to control the pace of games of football. Be able to comfortably hold the ball in the middle of the park and dictate how the game is going to be played. The pace of the game, the style of the game, dictate the game of football. And if you haven't got that, then it's very, very difficult to win a game of football. Even if you've got a striker up front that is capable of scoring or a goalkeeper that's capable of making fantastic saves. We've shown this season that if our midfield aren't clicking and aren't able to control games of football, then it's very, very difficult to win. And what we've shown in the last 5 days is we've played 2 games, both of which have consisted of a midfield that were able to control the game, were able to get the foot on the ball, were able to play it off, were able to, put the tackles in, win the ball back, move forward, be noticed in the game, and all of a sudden, we've won both of them. Magic, it's as if we didn't say 5 weeks ago, our midfield need to start doing more. Pardon me, by the way, if you notice me coughing and clearing my throat during this live stream, this is always the way when Everton play 3 times in a week. I think I've done something like 12, 13 videos in the space of 6, 7 days. So it always happens by the end of it, towards the end of it, my throat always practically gives up and I'm having to take a drink every 5 seconds. So I do apologise about that. But yeah, as I said, another absolutely fantastic performance yesterday, and the manager does deserve a huge amount of credit for that, because as much as people might want to tell you that it was a backup Aston Villa team and it was this, that and the other, Aston Villa ended that game with Ollie Watkins, John McGinn, Luca Dean, Boubacar Kamara, all on the pitch at the same time. Now, okay, they didn't have players that maybe are out long term, Tyrone Mings, etc., who were out with injuries, but they ended that game with the majority of the squad that will play this weekend in the Premier League on the pitch, and yet we were still able to relatively comfortably get through it. As I said, a bit of a shaky last 10 minutes, but even then, when they scored their goal and they pulled one back, it wasn't like we absolutely capitulated. It wasn't like we fell to bits. It wasn't like there was this 15-minute spell of them hitting the post and them hitting the bar and them getting 1,000 shots off. It wasn't. We were still relatively comfortable in that moment. Yes, it wasn't as comfortable as it had been in the previous 45 minutes, but it was still relatively comfortable, and we saw that game off relatively well. Again, I really don't know what's changed. I don't know what's changed. Like I said, I credit the manager. I do. Because I criticise the manager when things go wrong. When people tell me that, it's the owners, it's the director of football, it's the players, I'm very, I'll be honest, I'm very quick to criticise the manager, because the reality of the situation is the manager is there and his job is to get the very best out of this squad and to win games of football using this squad. And if we're not doing that, then for me, that falls on the manager. Yes, we can talk about the bigger issues at the football club, director of football, recruitment, ownership, etc. We can talk about the players' involvement themselves, but the reality is if players aren't winning, if Everton aren't winning games of football, then that directly falls on the head of the manager. So when Everton then start to win games of football and things start to change, I like to give the manager a bit of praise and a bit of credit, because he deserves that as well. Like I said, I really don't believe that these players have just turned up one day to work and gone, you know what, actually, we're going to start working hard now. We're going to start actually, playing as a team. We're going to start working well in the midfield. We're going to start creating more chances. We're going to start scoring more goals. I don't believe that that has happened. I believe that something is being said by the manager or something is being changed that ultimately has improved us massively, absolutely massively over the last 2 games, and as I said, we've seen that on show hugely, and we saw it on show again yesterday. We were absolutely fantastic from the first minute pretty much up until the last minute, and again, we were coming up against a tough side. Aston Villa are a tough team. They're not an easy team to beat by any sense of the imagination. I think they'd won 10, 11, maybe 12 games on the bounce. It might even be more than that before yesterday at Villa Park. And for us to turn up and do what we did was definitely a shock, but showed the quality and the ability of this team. And I seen a tweet the other day from a non-Evertonian, and I think it hit the nail on the head. It was something along the lines of, it's not very often that Everton win a game of football and play well, but when they do, they play really, really well. And I remember reading it, sort of thinking, you know what, that's right. Obviously we've gotten used to in recent years, turning up and watching Everton lose pretty much week in, week out, and all of a sudden not particularly being very good. But the games we have won, Brighton last year, comes to mind. Obviously Brentford, Villa yesterday. They've been really convincing wins, and games that Everton have been in control of and always look comfortable in. And you just think, well, if only we could do that every single week. If only we could apply that logic to, your home games against Wolves and Fulham at Goodison Park, or last season against, Southampton or other teams that, Wolves last season, games that we've lost and dropped points in, that if we'd have performed the way we've seen over the last 2 games, we'd have won those games comfortably. And it really does make you think. But like I said, I have to give massive credit to the manager for that performance yesterday, because it was fantastic. We were absolutely fantastic from the first minute to the last minute. We were brilliant. Obviously, the manager made a couple of changes going into the game. We had a 5 at the back. This time, Michael Keane coming in to partner James Tarkowski and Jared Brandthwaite. I was a little bit surprised by that, I'll be honest, because I expected James Tarkowski to come out the team and be given a little bit of a rest, obviously ahead of Saturday's game against Luton. That wasn't to be the case. He was left in there, and ultimately was given the task of playing alongside both Jared Brandthwaite and Michael Keane in a 5 at the back formation. We had the sort of full-backs, wing-backs, if you like, of Vitaly Mykolenko and Nathan Patterson, and then a midfield 2 this time of James Garner and Amadou Onana, with obviously Arnold Danjuma, Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Jack Harrison making his Everton debut up front. And I thought the system worked really well. And I remember looking at it before the game and thinking, this might be a little bit interesting, because, although we understand Nathan Patterson and Vitaly Mykolenko are young and have got a lot of stamina and are very fit, neither of which are particularly good wing backs, neither of which are particularly good going forward, neither of which offer particularly much going forward. So when I saw that we were playing that wing back system, and I remember thinking it'd be interesting to see how both fullbacks do today, and how much involvement they have going forward. Obviously, made up to see Jack Harrison in the starting 11, and I thought it was interesting to see a midfield 2 of James Garner and Amadou Onana as well. Garner getting the Corey coming out of there, and Everton started absolutely brilliantly. We look like a team that are absolutely swimming in confidence at the moment. And how baffling is that to say, considering a week ago we sat here and had a conversation about this team being, really, really low on confidence, and how do we build the confidence, and how does the manager sit down with the players and build the confidence. And all of a sudden it seems like within the space of 7 days that those problems have all been solved. And I'm not now saying that Everton are unbelievable and we're going to go and win every week and everything's fine because we've won a couple of games. But what I'm saying is, if you watch the opening 10 minutes of yesterday's game, and if you watch the opening 10 minutes of the Brentford game, we seem so much more confident than what we have done in any of our opening 10 minutes of the previous 4 or 5 games we've played so far this season. And, again, it further sort of accentuates the point that things can change so quickly in football now. Things can change like that instantly. They can change in football, and we've gone from a team that were massively low on confidence and barely looked like they could kick a ball 5 yards to each other, to a team that are turning up against really good Premier League sides away from home and comfortably dispatching of them. We started the game really, really well again. Really, really well. We're getting forward. We're moving the ball around well. We're pressing. Aston Villa, we're, again, trying to feel their way into the game. Trying to, trying to get at us, trying to press us. But we just look so comfortable. The defence looked so comfortable. I done the player ratings video earlier today, and I said, although the defence didn't particularly have an awful lot to do yesterday, everything they had to do, they were confident doing. And that is a massive compliment, by the way, because trust me, it's very easy to sit here and go, well, Aston Villa were terrible, so you can't really praise Everton's defence because they didn't really have much to do for the entirety of the game, etc., etc. But and again, listen, I was never a professional footballer. I was never a semi-professional footballer. I played Sunday League as a kid up until I was about 20 every week. And that was my level. That was my base level. But I was a centre-back and a right-back and a left-back for a number of years during being a kid. And we had a fair few games in that time where for 80 minutes I stood there with me coat on, practically doing nothing, because we were, we were winning 2 or 3-0, or we were comfortable, or our midfield were controlling the game, or our forward line were controlling the game, etc., etc. And me and the other defenders would stand there and practically not have to do. We'd be having conversations with each other. We'd not have to do anything. But then, all of a sudden, with 10 minutes to go, the opposition team would get a break on the counter attack, and we'd concede because we weren't focused. Because we weren't aware of what was going on. We'd lost concentration. We'd let the game get away with us a little bit. So, and again, I'm not comparing my level to Premier League level, but I'm just saying it's very, very difficult as a defender to keep yourself concentrated for 90 minutes when not much is going on and the opposition team aren't offering much. And Villa didn't offer much yesterday. Villa were terrible in the first half, absolutely terrible. He barely had a shot at goal. And in the second half, they weren't much better either. Okay, the last 10 minutes they come into it, but they weren't much better in the second half. But it's difficult then for the defence to continue to be, to be concentrating and to be on the game and to be aware and to be ready, to stay ready. And I know people are going, well, that's the job, Cam, the job's to stay ready, etc., etc. But it's not as easy as that. You try standing on a football pitch for 80 minutes, with not much to do, and then in the last 10 minutes of that game, have to get yourself hyped up to throw your body on the line 3 or 4 times to stop a goal. It's difficult. It really, really is. And I thought we done that really well yesterday, and that shouldn't be overlooked. Although we didn't have much to do defensively, the things we had to do, we did really, really well, and we didn't, we didn't allow them to, to get any form of momentum in the game. Like I said, I thought we started really, really well. Obviously, we scored the goal relatively early. It's a lovely, lovely, lovely goal. We've just spoken there about the midfield two, working together and gelling together. And again, whether or not, whether or not we see a midfield two of Amadou, Onana and James Garner in the future, maybe we will. Maybe the manager will look at that 5 at the back and ultimately think, do you know what, maybe we can utilise that a little bit more in upcoming fixtures. Maybe we'll see it on Saturday, who knows. And if we do see that 5 at the back, I'm sure it will be a midfield two of James Garner and Amadou Onana, because the pair of them yesterday were absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I've said it on the player ratings, and I don't want to sit here and go over myself and repeat myself, but that, for me, was the best performance I've seen Amadou Onana put in an Everton shirt. It's simple as that. The best performance I've ever seen from Amadou Onana in an Everton shirt. He was absolutely colossal yesterday. Absolutely colossal. He was everywhere. Every bit of defending he needed to do, he was there to do it. Getting forward, he was there to attack. He was winning the ball back. He was throwing slide challenges in. He looked visibly shattered by the time he been brought off to be replaced by Abdoulaye Doucouré. And that is what you want to see. I want to see our players not looking tired, and then I'm sitting there thinking, why are you looking tired? You've barely been in the game. I want to see our players looking tired and me being able to sit there and go, do you know what, fair play, he's ran his absolute bollocks off there today. He's thrown himself in front of everything. He's got in the box, he's got in the other, he's box to box, he's made the challenges, he's took players on. That's what I want to see, and that's what I want to see week in, week out from Amadou Onana. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. And I've seen a couple of tweets today saying, don't you all feel stupid now for criticising him, etc., etc. No, I don't, because the reality of the situation is his performances generally as a whole have not been good enough in the last, certainly since the beginning of the season. They haven't been good enough. I've said it. I say it week in, week out, and I stick with my point. Amadou Onana is somebody that you should be recognising every single time he plays. And by that, what I mean is he should be standing out. He's a 6'4", 6'5" central midfielder with all of the attributes and all of the potential to be a top midfielder in world football. He should be somebody that every game you're looking at. And okay, he's young, so maybe you'll have 1 or 2 games where he's not quite on it or he's a bit inconsistent. But for the most part, every week you should be looking at Amadou Onana and thinking, do you know what, he's been absolutely colossal today. And we've not seen that. We've not seen that. The Blues says he's been good all season. I disagree. I think statistically he's probably being good, but as I've mentioned in previous videos, personally for me, I don't look at pass accuracy or completed passes, because I could stand there in the middle of the park, pass the ball once, I'd have 100% complete pass accuracy, and then the game could just pass me by. I could just stand there and do nothing for the rest of the game. My personal opinion is that up until this week, and by this week I mean Brentford and Villa, I don't think he's been good enough. I don't think he's been awful. I think he's been alright, but I don't think he's been as good as what I expect him to be. However, what I will say the Blues is, for the last 5 days against Brentford and against Villa, he has been absolutely fantastic. And he was absolutely brilliant again yesterday. The assist for James Garner's goal it's second to none. I've watched it back about 3 or 4 times, and do you know what it reminds me of? And I'm not just saying this for the sake of it. I'm not just saying this for clickbait or for for effect. It generally reminded me a little bit of James Rodriguez's assist at Anfield for Richarlison's opening goal. Again, an early goal in that game. And by that, what I mean is, if you remember that game, which I'm sure a lot of you do, because it's the first time and the only time we've beaten Liverpool for about a decade. But the ball was bobbling about in that game. It was getting headed up. I think Decore headed it, Richarlison headed it, I think somebody else headed it. And all of a sudden, James just took it down, took a touch, and sprayed a lovely ball through to Richarlison. Richarlison got the wrong side of his man, I think it was Ozan Kabak, and put it in the back of the net. This was very similar yesterday. The ball was headed up. No one was really in control of it. It was a messy situation. Onana brings it down, plays arguably a better ball than the James Rodriguez one, because James's ball was quite straight in the way that he was facing. It wasn't the hardest pass to complete. Onana's one yesterday, he's had to check the ball back. So not only has he brought it down out of the air and controlled it and got the ball under control, but he's checked it back, across his body into that space for James Garner. The Villa players simply haven't been able to read it. They haven't been able to anticipate it. James Garner runs in that space. He gets on the end of it and he blasts it away. And it's an absolutely fantastic, fantastic goal. A midfield duo working together to put Everton 1-0 up in the third round of the Carabao Cup. And do you know what? I don't say this very often, and there's reasons for not saying this very often, but I'll be honest. And this might be me getting a little bit overconfident, me getting a little bit cocky, who knows, I'm gone. 2 seconds, as you can tell, 15 videos in 6 days or whatever it is, my throat is giving up at the moment. But the moment we scored that goal, and we went 1-0 up, and then for the 10 minutes that followed, we were comfortable, and we were passing the ball around, and we were getting it in the right areas, and Villa weren't really in the game. I sat back to myself on the couch and sort of thought, is this what it's like to support a footy team that just turn up and win games comfortably and don't stress their fans out? Usually when Everton are 1-0 up, I've got my head in my hands, I'm shitting myself, I'm thinking, oh my God, when are we going to concede? I'm on my phone to check the score app to see if we've conceded yet. Usually it's almost like we score, and then it's like the countdown timer from the TV show Countdown. It's just a matter of time before we concede. Then it's like, right, start the timer, and then we've conceded. Whereas yesterday, and it might be because of how comfortable we were against Brentford when we went ahead, and how well we dealt with that game and how well we saw that game out. But yesterday we went 1-0 up, and after about 5 or 10 minutes, when it became quite evident that Villa weren't really in it, I sort of just sat back and went, you know what? I'm a bit comfortable here. I'm not stressed. I'm not anxious. I'm not worried that we're going to concede. I'm just enjoying watching Everton winning a game of footy and not absolutely shitting themselves at the fact that they're winning a game of footy. And I really felt that yesterday. And again, maybe that's just a one-off feeling that I'll never get again this season. But it was nice to sit there, to watch Everton winning, and for it to not be like an, oh my God, what's going on here? When are we going to concede? Or what's this? It was just like, yeah. I remember my girlfriend saying to me, what's the score? And I just went, we're winning 1-0. And I just caught myself after it, just laughing to myself, thinking, what the fuck am I doing sitting here? What do I mean? We're winning 1-0. We don't win away. Never mind 2 away games on the bounce. Never mind beating teams that have got a home record like Aston Villa have. We don't do that. We don't. That's not what we do as Everton Football Club. And I'm sitting here going, oh yeah, it's 1-0. We're winning 1-0. No bother. It is what it is. We do that every week. And again, it is further credit to the manager for turning this around and for turning and again, like I said, don't get me wrong, I'm not now fully in he's the best thing to ever happen to Everton Football Club and we should give him a 90-year contract. But what I'm saying is, he has definitely done something over the last 2 games or the last week or so to give these players a little bit more confidence and to give them a little bit more belief in themselves, because the performances over the last 5 days have been fantastic and he deserves credit for that and he deserves the opportunity to continue that. And like I said, for me, those next 2 home games are so pivotal and still are so pivotal. Even as I said last week, even if we're to beat Brentford and Villa, somehow those 2 games against Luton and Bournemouth are still ridiculously important and we need to win them because, A, the 2 games against teams we should be beating, and B, the 2 home games against teams we should be beating. But like I said, the manager does deserve a massive amount of credit for that, and for me, the first goal yesterday was absolutely fantastic. It was a lovely ball in by James Garner, and the finish by Amadou Onana is just absolutely exquisite. It really, really is. And then, like I said, we go 1-0 up, and we were comfortable again from that point on. We were getting forward. I think Jack Harrison was absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Very nearly made it 2-0. With a lovely ball, similar to Onana's, really lovely switch ball across his body into Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Dom gets into, a good area, one-on-one with the goalkeeper, Robin Olsen, takes the shot, it's saved, and then he tries to squeeze it in from a silly angle that he shouldn't. He should have just left it, but ultimately he didn't. And it goes out for a goal kick, and then you're thinking, oh, could it have been 2-0 there? Could we ultimately have really put this game to bed and really put this game away from Aston Villa? But ultimately, we were still the team in control. If it wasn't like we were winning 1-0, but it was only a matter of time before we conceded. It was almost like if any team's going to score a second here, it's going to be Everton. Everton are going to go 2-0 up. Everton are going to be in control. Everton are going to be cruising. And again, we could have been. We had a couple of good opportunities, as I said. Dom had one big opportunity. We had a couple of other half moments where we could have, created opportunities, and ultimately we could have gone into half time with a really, really comfortable lead. And we should have gone into half time with a really comfortable lead because Villa weren't in the game at all. Villa weren't in the game whatsoever. They, and again, I said it when we beat Brentford, and I'll say it again. Maybe we have being given a little bit of a slice of look at the fact that the 2 teams that we've played on the night have been dreadful. Brentford were absolutely horrendous on Saturday evening, and Villa yesterday were absolutely horrendous as well. So maybe we've been given a little bit of a blessing with that. But you can then also argue, well, why have they been so poor? For me, Villa were so poor yesterday because what they did when they beat us in the Premier League at Villa Park was they were able to just overload us completely. Overload us going forward, overload us with pace, power, and we couldn't cope with it defensively. Whereas yesterday, because we had that 5 at the back, and we had the high wing backs, and we had the high press, every single time Robin Olsen had the ball at his feet, Jack Harrison was on his toes. They weren't able to do that. And I think they were getting frustrated by that. So there's a massive argument to be had that, okay, the teams that we've played in the last 5 days haven't particularly been great. But is that because we haven't allowed them to be very good? Don't get me wrong, there's obviously still an element of they weren't at their best, same with Brentford. But I think there's, again, massive credit to the manager. I think the way in which he set up and the way in which he set that team up and the personnel he put out nullified Aston Villa from being able to do what they wanted to do, and therefore, put us in control of the game. Dan Juma had the chance, as the Blues mentioned, to square it. Again, I think Dan Juma's a little bit caught in this thing at the moment of really wanting to impress and really wanting to prove himself and really wanting to show that, he can score goals and he can get assists and he can be a part of, a team that is a success, etc., etc., etc. And by doing that, I think when he's getting in those good areas and when he's having those moments, he's not necessarily making the right decisions. And by that, what I mean is, he's cutting in and he's taking shots from areas that really maybe, he should lift his head up and look for a pass, because if he'd have done that a couple of times yesterday, he will have seen that, he will have seen that there was a pass on for Dominic Calvert-Lewin on a couple of occasions that, we could have played, and ultimately, we may have been able to put the game to bed a lot earlier. But again, I've got no big issue with Arnold Danjuma, wanting to score goals and therefore taking shots at goal and having those opportunities, because ultimately he just, he wants to impress and he wants to show that he's able to compete, and he's able to, to ultimately, to have a positive impact on this team. So I've got no massive issue with it, but I do think that some of his decisions, certainly recently, maybe could have been a little bit better. One player I do want to point out yesterday, making his Everton debut, was Jack Harrison. I thought Jack Harrison was absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Luke Chapman says it's my birthday today. Happy birthday, Luke. Hope you have a good day. Yeah, he was absolutely fantastic. Jack Harrison, he was brilliant from the first minute until the minute he was taken off. And that isn't even a fully fit Jack Harrison, by the way. That's a Jack Harrison that is probably still 1 to 2 weeks away from his prime level of fitness. He was excellent. He was everywhere. As I said, every time that Robin Olsen had the ball at his feet, every time that Aston Villa were trying to break out, trying to play from the front, trying to move the ball forward, they weren't able to do it because Jack Harrison was just on their toes constantly on the toes, constantly stopping them from playing out, constantly stopping them from going long. He was brilliant yesterday. And as I said before, very nearly had an assist, and probably should have had an assist if Don was able to put that chance away. But not only that, but his general play was just absolutely fantastic yesterday. He was brilliant. It was a top performance by Jack. And as I said, Everton go in at half time, 1-0 up. And you're thinking, great, happy days, we've been comfortable here. Villa haven't been particularly, impressive. They've not had chances on goal. They've not created much. They've not looked like they want to be in the game. They've not even looked particularly bothered about the fact that they're losing 1-0. And we've looked really, really, really good again. And by the way, you can listen to certain journalists or certain Villa fans saying, we didn't want to win the game. We want to focus on Europe. We weren't that arsed, etc., etc. We don't want to be in the Carabao Cup, etc. Sound. Even if you'd have turned up yesterday and Unai Emery had have walked on the pitch before the game, and he'd have stood on the middle of the pitch and said, by the way, we don't care about this competition. We're not asked. We're going to play John McGinn left back. We're going to take a number of our first teamers out. And we want Everton to beat us because we don't want to be in it. I'd still be sat here today buzzing about this result, because it's not about Villa. It's not about how bad Villa were or how much they didn't want it or how much they're focusing on other competitions. I'm not asked what Aston Villa are focusing on. I couldn't give a shit whether Aston Villa are focusing on Europe, the Carabao Cup, the Premier League, or whether Unai Emery's focusing on what he's having for his tea. I'm not asked. What I'm asked about is the fact that Everton have turned up and, and again, comfortably beaten and comfortably dispatched of a really, really strong side. And Villa, by the way, would have wanted that game. Of course they would have, because Unai Emery will want to be in every competition he can be. And they had a home record to keep up. They're a record of winning or not losing in 13 consecutive home games or whatever it is. So there's no way they would have wanted to lose that game. The Blues says, was there an Evertonian that wasn't worried about the missed opportunities in the first half coming back to bite us? Do you know what, mate? That's what I was saying before. Do you know at half-time of the Brentford game, I was sitting there and I was thinking, are we going to be in a position again where, the opportunities come back to bite us? We've hit the bar with the Core, we've had a couple of other chances, Mikalenko, which we should have done better. But yesterday I wasn't. I'll be honest, I really, really wasn't. And I don't know where this new level of confidence is come from. And again, I don't know why I've got it, because it's only been 2 games and we play again in 48 hours and I could have a very different mood. I could be in a very different mood this time in 48 hours time, but I wasn't. I was just, they won their last 10 home games, Villa. So there you go, even better than unbeaten. They've won their last 10 home games. But no, I wasn't stressed. I was just sitting there at half time thinking, Everton winning away. That's what we do. That's what we do. No, but seriously, there was there was obviously an element of are we going to be able to keep this up in the second half? What what difference are we going to see in the second half? Because we always knew we were going to see substitutions. We always knew we were going to see a bit of a tactical change. We come out in the second half, and again, within 5 minutes, we've got the second goal. And that's something that I've noticed we've done a lot recently, even away from home. We did it against Sheffield United. We're coming out early in games or early in halves and scoring. We've done it against Sheffield United, we've done it against Brentford, and we've done it again yesterday. We're going 1-0 up very early on in games. And whereas against Sheffield United, we completely capitulated in terms of being able to keep our heads and being able to, to keep that scoreline. Yesterday, that wasn't the case. Yesterday, we were able to sort of calm it down, control it, and then we come out in the second half and we get a second. The second goal, again, is absolutely brilliant. Dominic Calvert-Lewin seizes an opportunity for himself, knocks it past the defender, gets one-on-one with the goalkeeper and rectifies his mistake in the first half. He was one-on-one with the goalkeeper in the first half. He couldn't put it away. This time, he's one-on-one with the goalkeeper and he does put it away. And it's an absolutely wonderful goal. This, by the way, a wonderful goal, and it's shades of old Dominic Calvert-Lewin, isn't it? It's shades of the Dominic Calvert-Lewin under Carlo Ancelotti, and I'm not saying that he's back to that level, and I'm not saying we should expect 20 goals from him this season or whatever he ended up getting that season, but just watching that goal just reminded me of the performances that he put in under Carlo in that in that season where he was just absolutely on fire. I think the addition of Beto has helped him hugely because it's taken the pressure off him needing to start. He's not started any of the last couple of games. He's been fit now for about 3 or 4 weeks, but yesterday was the first time he started in that period of time because he's not needed to start because we've had Beto in there. The Blues, I was a little bit worried, I'll be honest. I was just thinking, what's going on here? Everton are winning and we're comfortable. But yeah. But no, I think the addition of Beto has helped Dominic Calvert-Lewin massively because it's taken the pressure off him needing to be fit all the time. And even when he is fit, it's taking the pressure off him needing to start. Dom now is in a position where he can sit on the bench fully fit for a game, for 2 games, for 3 games, and not really, be hugely missed. He would be missed, obviously, because he's big for us, but you know what I mean? We've got somebody there now that's capable of stepping in and doing that job. Therefore, meaning when he comes in, he wants to take his opportunity and he wants to, he wants to hit the ground running. He scored 2 goals in 2 games, Dominic Calvert-Lewin now, and I think I think his goal yesterday was the epitome of what hopefully he's getting back to, and if he can get back to that level of performance every week, then blooming hell, we've got some player on our hands because he was absolutely fantastic again yesterday, and his work rate, his desire, his commitment, and the goal is brilliant. It's exactly what you want from your number 9. It's exactly what you want from your striker, and we go 2-0 up, and again, we're relatively comfortable. As I said, the midfield deserve a huge amount of credit for me, Onana and Ghana, not only because of their link up for the first goal, but generally for the entire game. I thought they were both absolutely outstanding. I really, really did. I thought the pair of them were absolutely outstanding. And they controlled the ball in the middle of the park, and they didn't allow Villa to get on the ball. And Villa never really got on the ball or in the game until the last 10-15 minutes when they'd made a couple of changes. But that was so vitally important to the way we played because it allowed Jack Harrison to be able to do his running around. It allowed, Dominic Calvert-Lewin to be able to, create that space and knock a ball past the defender and create an opportunity for himself. It allowed the defence to be relatively comfortable but still, concentrating and still aware of what could happen. The game did change a little bit. Villa made a few changes. They brought on Ollie Watkins. They brought on Luka Dean. We made a couple of changes. Mikalenko obviously come off with a slight injury. Ashley Young come on. We obviously brought Beto on for Dom Calvert-Lewin. We brought Decore on for Onana. And Villa did start to get back into the game a little bit more at that point. Again, it was almost like, right, we've got 20 minutes now. Let's try and at least have a little bit of a go. And it was a bit of a shaky last 20 minutes, I'll be honest. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't massively worried, but, as soon as they scored the goal, I just remember thinking, right, we've got 10 minutes now, just don't throw this away. I wasn't as confident in that moment, but even their goal it's not like we felt a bit. It's not like we capitulated. It's not like we were absolutely terrible in that moment and we conceded or we lost our heads. It was a lucky goal. It was a strike from 25 yards that Jordan Pickford would have saved comfortably if it wasn't for about 3 deflections it takes. The final one coming off of Michael Keane, of course, and ultimately goes into the back of the net. And that's a goal that any team can concede at any time, even the best teams in the world. Manchester City will concede goals like that this season because teams will get a little bit of a slice of luck, etc., etc. But again, one huge compliment I can give this Everton team, the players and the manager, is that we conceded there with 10 minutes to go in the game. 10 minutes to go, we conceded that goal and we were 2-1 up. It would have been so easy. I'm holding my nose, by the way, because I'm about to sneeze. It's coming at some point, but I don't know when it's coming. It keeps coming and going. But Everton in the past, a lot of Everton teams in the past, including this set of players, by the way, in that situation, conceding with 10 minutes to go when you're winning 2-1 away, they would have capitulated. They would have certainly conceded the second goal, and it would have either gone to penalties, and we would have lost on penalties, or we would have conceded a third goal as well. We've seen it numerous times before. Or we'd have been absolutely piled. The pressure would have been piled on for the last 10 minutes, and we'd have basically just threw everything at it, and if we'd have got away with it, we'd have been very lucky to do so. Yesterday, it wasn't even any of that. We conceded the goal, and the Blues says even after the slice look, they barely laid the glove on us. We conceded the goal, and it's almost like everybody, the whole defence, Jordan Pickford, the midfield, just went, yeah, do you know what, that's unlucky, well, pick our heads up, let's just see this game out. And for the next 10 minutes, alright, they had a couple of crosses into the box that were dealt with, and they had a couple of moves in and around the midfield, a couple of moments that defensively we dealt with. I thought Jared Brandwaite was absolutely phenomenal. I thought Michael Keane done well, I'll be honest. I thought Tarkowski was very good. I thought Nathan Patterson had his best game in an Everton shirt for a long time, if not ever. And again, it was almost a shock to see an Everton team not absolutely shit themselves in that situation and just be calm and just be cool and just almost be like, yeah, do you know what? Whatever, it is what it is. We're just going to see this game out, no problem. And then for 10 minutes after that, we saw the game out comfortably. And I remember sitting at the end of it, just before I done my instant match reaction, thinking, so hang on, I've been comfortable when Everton have been winning 1-0. Oh my God, do you see that? What's going on there? Do you see that? Oh my days, what's just happened there? Oh, this technology is a bit crazy, I think that's that reactions. I'll turn that off. I don't know whether you could even see that. Can you see it? I'm just trying to check. You can see it. What? How mad's that? How mad is? I can't get over that, I cannot get over that. This is what happens when you're live. Leave the video a like. It's not going to do it again now. It's going to make me out to be a tit, isn't it? Leave the video a like. Anyway, that I don't know what's just gone on there. I'll be perfectly honest, but I'll have a play around with that and see what I can do. But yeah, leave the video a like if you're enjoying it, please. That would mean a massive amount to me. That would be brilliant. It's free. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. But yeah, I caught myself at the end of the game going, hang on. So, all in one game, I've watched Everton go 1-0 up and not shit myself at the mere fact we could concede. I've been relatively comfortable. I've turned round to my girlfriend and said, yeah, we're winning 1-0, as if it's just something we do every week. And we've conceded with 10 minutes to go, and we've not absolutely shit ourselves, and we've just seen the game out comfortably with no problem. What's going on? What is this new Everton? What have people done with Everton, and who is this imposter? Because this isn't what we do. But you know what? It's what we've done the last 2 games, and you know what? The manager deserves huge credit for that, and it's 2 big performances. We saw the game out, we win the game, we're into the next round, we play Burnley at home. We done the little YouTube short yesterday talking about that. Again, a good draw for me. We could have got better, of course. We could have got Port Vale or somebody like that, but any draw at home is a positive, and to draw a team like Burnley, who are struggling at the moment in a very winnable game, is for me not a bad draw whatsoever. And we've given ourselves a huge confidence boost going into Saturday. Now, I think Saturday will be booming. Absolutely booming now on Saturday. I mean, the Blues has back-to-back away wins versus Premier League opposition for the first time in 2,572 days. That just shows how impressive those 2 wins were. It's not been done for years. Well, how many years is that? That's nearly 10 years. Innit? Really? 8 years, 9 years, something like that. 7 years. Massive week for Everton Football Club. Massive win against Brentford. Massive win yesterday into the next round. But it's not just about winning in the cup and progressing into the next round. It's what that win does for the confidence of the team, what that win does for the momentum, what that win does for the feeling around, the football club. And one thing's for sure is I think Goodison Park will be absolutely rocking on Saturday. I think it would be absolutely rocking, and I can't wait. I've not looked forward to an Everton game like this in a long, long time, because I think if we can perform like we've done the last 2 games, I think we'll wipe the floor off Luton. I think we'll absolutely, I think we'll comfortably beat them, and I think the atmosphere will be absolutely buzzing. Absolutely buzzing, and I can't wait for it. But fantastic win. Brilliant result, fantastic performance again. Huge credit to the manager, huge credit for the players, and hopefully we can take that confidence boost into the weekend now and go and get another big win in the Premier League, because we really, really need it. And we deserve a win at Goodison Park. We haven't won at Goodison Park since the Bournemouth game, and we really, really need a win, don't we? The Blues says we'll take Burnley. I thought we'd draw the Copites, to be honest. No, that'll be in the quarters, mate. That'll be in the quarters. Anyway, we're going to leave it there. If you have enjoyed this one, please do leave a like. It does only take a second. We'll be back tomorrow with the game preview to that game against Luton. Even though I don't know whether my throat's going to be able to go, we'll still be back, because that's what we do. That's just what we do. Even if I've got to do 100 videos a week, we're there doing it, so don't you worry. If you've enjoyed this one, please hit the like button. It does only take a second if you are new to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe as well. That would mean a huge, huge, huge amount to me. Big thank you all for watching, and we'll see you later.